This is my 2017 R-Line Passat, and I intend on transforming it into what I would call a GLI Passat. And to do that, I'll be swapping in, first and foremost, a DSG transmission and a stock turbo from a Jetta GLI Mark 6.5. I forgot to show. It's pretty quick. Not gonna set any records, but for 1.8 Passat with stock turbo, it gets up and goes, especially now that it's slightly cooler here in South Carolina. And the transmission is still doing okay, but in between shifts it flares up. See, it kind of hangs over there at 5,000 between shifts until the pressure catches up and clamps into the next gear. And all of that is gonna go away once the DSG is in. I think the maximum pressure is about 14 I've seen in the logs, boost pressure, with the MAP 2, which, you know, it kind of falls off towards 10 or something, towards the red line. That's because of the stock turbo, not really able to keep up. Here we are a day later in the garage. I have the turbo out after a lot of struggling, but it's out, thankfully. And we can see here the differences and similarities. For the most part, it's very similar. The exhaust or the turbine housing is exactly the same, actually. Same size. The compressor is about 15% larger, and it clearly shows here. You just look here, you can see how much larger it is. It's a Honeywell turbo versus a Garrett stock turbo. Everything else is the same. Inlets, outlets, even the bypass valves are the same. The boost control solenoids are different. This one read 3.8 volt. The stock Passat reads 2.0 something. So I'm gonna swap in the stock one to make sure the ECU is happy. Here's the DSG. And this is what the current state is. I had to pull the turbo out of the top here, and I had to move the ignition coil harness out of the way. It was a bit of a struggle, but it did come out. I'm not looking forward to putting it back in through here, but this is the only way. So I'm gonna get going, get the turbo back in there, and reconnect afterwards. It's a few days later. The turbo is in, the engine is happy, I'm happy. I worked with fine folks at Berger Motorsports to create a MAP 6 catered to this specific configuration, sending logs of MAP 2 and then adjusting a few variations of MAP 6. And we've reached a plateau at these lower temperatures, so we just left it at that. Everything is good, no leaks as far as I know, and the car is fairly quick, actually breaking traction in second gear now, which, you know, maybe that was possible as well with a stock turbo. Maybe I just never pushed it that far, but I feel better doing that on this slightly larger turbo. I did receive the hardware to be able to connect to the DSG directly, or the TCU in the DSG. So we got this adapter here from Go Diag. It's specifically designed to connect to the DQ transmissions using this harness. I already tested it with OBD11 and it does connect, but it won't go any further as far as reading it. So for that we need something like the KES or any variation of such devices that are designed to connect to either the ECU or the TCU of various makes and models. But for the DQ specifically requires this adapter as far as I know. So we got that. Now we're gonna attempt to connect to it and read it. This is the first time I'm doing this, and I did already install the software. So we're gonna find out if this is gonna work. Looks like I was able to get the software to connect to the hardware after shutting it down and reopening the software. So let's see if it actually reads the TCU now. So if we go here, press OK, connect, and here we go, reading ID. So yeah, oh, okay, well, and here we go. I want this. So this is what the DSG tuner asked me for. So I'm gonna send this to them and they'll be able to understand what I am working with here in terms of hardware and be able to create a custom tune for this transmission, hopefully, so that it'll cooperate with the 1.8T's ECU. Okay, switch off. Well, here we can do a read. Okay. Proceed to read. Yes. Several minutes. Okay. Six minutes. Goodness. What era are we living in? Pretty neat. This harness here supports all the variants. Oh shoot, better be careful here with the power. Touching the case of the transmission. All variants of the DQ, and it was fairly inexpensive on eBay. Gotta love eBay. All of these parts came from eBay actually. This is the harness that supposedly was from this transmission, and what I've discovered after unwinding the crusty dried out electric tape that this was wrapped in, this stuff here. So, you know, had I not taken it apart and just ran it the way it came, we would have had these types of issues here, and then trying to chase it would have been a big pain in the butt. Also, if you look at this wire, look at that. It was like this, you know, from many years of heat and oxidation. So I'm gonna have to repair this. As when I make the harness to connect to the stock or the factory CAN bus system. Where are we at here? 4 minutes. Voltage dropping. You can't even cancel here. I suppose if the voltage drops enough, it's just gonna stop. Thankfully, we're only reading. That's why you really are supposed to have a power supply or a battery charger hooked up, maybe, or you can have the car running. I got this on Amazon, also fairly inexpensive, and so far it's working as intended. I still need to make sure that I can write a file, but I believe that it'll be no problem. I'm back, everybody. This is the next weekend, and here's the situation. I am in the process of pulling the DSG transmission up into the engine compartment with the help of a jack, because it would not go in just with a jack due to the flywheel being bolted onto the engine and taking up a bunch of space. I have 3 chains here down the center, which allows the transmission to kind of tilt backwards here, or tilt down on the right side, which allows it to kind of sneak past the flywheel there. And I did have to remove the axle stub as well. And I'm gonna have to start pulling it into the engine as well as I jack up this part of it, or this end. Here's the automatic, the trusty automatic that took all the manual shifting beating that I put it through. And it comes out with, well, it came out thankfully with the torque converter in place. 0 fluid spilled. I did have to remove the oil cooler, this bracket, to get it out from under the car, as well as to get to this bolt over here. That could have just been me, but it made it easier. So here I am, and I'm gonna continue on pulling it back into the car and button everything up. And tomorrow I'll be working on the wiring and hopefully getting it started and driving. I was able to reuse the stock transmission cooler lines. Just had to trim them a little bit, and they almost fit perfect as if they belong here. So this is the line here with what I believe is maybe an inline thermostat, maybe not, but for some reason it's got a break here and a quick connect. And the other one, it was actually facing here, this one, and I had to just loosen it up here, the clamp, and twist it this way for it to actually point towards the bottom, and it worked out perfect. We're back working on the transmission harness. what I did was utilize the factory TCM harness. So out of the stock transmission harness, we only need the 2 ground wires, the CAN wire, the CAN pair, high and low, a switch 12 volt, and the 2 constant 12 volts. So in total 4, 6, let's call the 7 one pair. I'm sorry, 4, 6, 4, 5. It's been a long day. 4, 5, 6. And on the harness, the DQ or the DSG harness, we have to use both of the grounds, and we have to make sure that we use both of the grounds in the stock harness, because the transmission needs more current than a single pair can supply. So we have to make sure we use both grounds. We have to make sure we use both of the constant 12 volts. So this takes care of the DQ or the DSG transmission. This is our first drive. Reverse, normal operation. Forward drive. No adaptations. This is how it was as it shipped. It just downshifted to first gear. Paddle shifters work as well. Was finally able to get this hooked up. What a mess. Can barely see anything in there with this from this angle. I had to use my wife's makeup kit as a mirror. It took about 40 minutes, which was hell. It's in there now. And here's the writing process. Should be done in about 4 minutes. Here we go. All his ECU issues resolved, thanks to Russell Road and Racing in United Kingdom. He was able to source a stock Sims 18.2 ECU file, and all it took was the deletion of the lost communication with TCU error, and the computer is no longer in the engine protection mode, and the check engine light is also no longer there. Russell Road and Racing supplied the stock modified file without the error code, lost communication with TCM, and I used the Sims Tools Android app with an OBD2 dongle provided by Russell Road and Racing. And the flash process took about 15 minutes with the app, very straightforward. And now I am very relieved and very excited to have a DSG equipped Passat 1.8T with the larger turbo and JB4 back in the car, and am loving these direct shifts. So now manual, just like the automatic and manual, if you're very light on the throttle, it shifts with slight delay. I suppose that's for comfort. But if you're on the throttle, the shift pressure is increased and the shifts are very fast. Although the downshifts are a bit laggy and clunky, and that's probably because this is not a factory DSG car and the ECU is still configured or programmed for the 09G automatic. And I'm gonna have to explore my options in the near future, but for now I'm just enjoying it as it is. What I found is, and this is only in manual, the downshifts are a little rough. What I found is if you just give it slight throttle, then it downshifts fine, quick. If you downshift without any throttle, then it takes a little time, just like the stock auto did. As soon as we are under any power, the shifts are much better. So I'm going to put it back in drive, and it's going to drive perfectly fine. Very smooth down and up shifts. And if I put it in sport, it really likes to hang around at the higher RPMs. It even downshifts into first at like 10 miles an hour, or maybe 15. I think it shifts at like 5,000 RPM, or 4.5. Man, this map 6 tune and the larger turbo, this thing, something else now. As you can see here, the drive downshifts are very smooth. does want to stall once in a while from takeoff. If I take off a bit too aggressively, it might almost stall. Maybe it's an adaptation thing, which I'll have to see how it does with time. But otherwise, it's great. I could not have asked for anything more, really. I'm just so excited and relieved that with the great help of Russell Road and Racing and George at DSGfiles.com, they were wonderful help, and I am very much appreciative and thankful to them. And that's that.